everybody to Motocross Action's 2022.5 Rockstar Edition Husqvarna FC250 tested video. We are gonna get our hands on this bike for the first time today at Glen Helen. We got the track rented out. It's gonna be a good time riding this bike, but the one caveat is that we've been spending a lot of time on the KTM Factory Edition, which is very similar to this bike. It's got the all new frame, all new engine, and a lot of updates on this bike, including the quick shift, new map switches, and different stuff like that. So it's gonna be a lot of fun today riding on this bike. There's not a whole lot of differences between the KTM and Husqvarna models, but we're gonna talk about it and explain to you all that we've learned on the KTM Factory Editions in this video. All right guys, it was a good day of riding on the 2022.5 Husky FC250 Rockstar Edition. We had MXA test rider Cole Zeller on the bike today. I got to ride it a little bit after he did. As I mentioned in our FC450 Rockstar Edition video, we got to ride both bikes today back to back, and the track was smooth at Glen Helen. It's a Wednesday. We had the track rented out. Smooth track doesn't make the best for testing, but with the FC250, it's all about power and how it works on the track. 450 class is more so about how a bike handles. You got to make an engine that's strong enough to go fast and get good starts, but the 450 class is more about making an engine that everybody can ride hard and do good lap times on, complete a 30-minute moto or a 20-minute moto or even a 5-lap moto. If the bike's too fast, it's going to be hard to hold on to no matter how many laps you're riding. In the 250 class, it's a little bit of a different story. Because it's a smaller bore motorcycle, because it's already quite a bit down on horsepower, it is all about horsepower, it's all about torque, and it's all about going fast. That's what KTM has been all about in the last few years. They've had high revving engines. KTM has kind of pioneered the big bore short stroke engine, where it means that you're going to get a lot higher RPM, a lot higher revving motorcycles, and that's what KTM has done, and Honda followed suit, and Kawasaki definitely followed suit as well. So now for 2022.5 or the 2023 models that are coming out soon, KTM and Husqvarna have gone to an even bigger bore and an even shorter stroke. So now the bore is about 3 millimeters bigger. It went up to an 81 bore, and the stroke went down to a 48.5. So I talked to a couple engine builders early on before this bike even came out, and they were surprised with the specs that they were hearing about on the FC250 and KTM 250 Factory Editions. And so far on the track and on the dyno, the new engine is very, very strong. So that's not mind-boggling strong on the dyno. It's about a horsepower or a half a horsepower all the way up basically on the power curve on the dyno, stronger than the current generation 2022. It's not something that's gonna yank your arms out of your sockets, but it is definitely stronger. KTM really focused on getting more pickup in the mid-range power on their new 250 engine and Husky engine, and they definitely achieved that. It's definitely a lot stronger, but with the FC250 from Rockstar Edition, it has the closed off airbox again. Same song, different year for Husqvarna. KTM has always been the ready to race brand. Husky has always been kind of the pioneer, the more high end. They put a couple different parts on there, make it a little different color. Obviously it's not orange, it's white. So Husky's always been a little bit different. And then Gas, they come in as the price point brand, just a little bit lower price point and a little bit different parts on there to add more comfort and so on. Husky has always had closed off airboxes, and we've complained about it for years and years. Now they make vented airboxes that you can put on the current generation Huskies, but this new model, it comes with a vented airbox cover too, which is nice, but the top inlets where you can do kind of Superman seat grabs looks like a freestyle motorcycle on the KTM, where you can see all the way through underneath the seat. Husky, it is completely closed off right there, and it's pretty wild because they're losing and missing out on a lot of bottom end snap and throttle response on these 250 and 450 Rockstar Editions because it's a lot more closed off. So we rode back to back today with the vented airbox cover and with the closed off airbox cover. It's not crazy difference high in the RPM range, but at the bottom of the RPM range, right when you crack the throttle, it's a lot more free revving, quick revving, better throttle response off the bottom end. And our theory, we talked about it today, is that when you're off the throttle, the engine isn't pulling any air through the airbox. As soon as you crack that throttle, you're starting to pour fuel in the engine, and air into the airbox is starting to suck it into the engine. It's going from no air to air. And that opening, when you have a vented airbox cover, it's easier to flow air in there. But then once you get higher into the RPM range, the bike is already flowing air, so it doesn't make as big of a difference high in the RPM. So a vented airbox cover, it's not gonna make crazy horsepower on top, but it is gonna help with that bottom end snap. And that's exactly what we felt today. Husky FC250 wasn't as strong as the KTM 250 off the bottom, even when we did have that vented airbox cover on there. And also map 1 and map 2, KTM, Husky, their goal was to make it a lot bigger of a difference. This is the exact same electronics on the Husky as it is on the KTM, so it should feel the same, but it actually feels quite a bit closer. I mentioned it in our FC450 Rockstar Edition tested video. I'll mention it again in this video. I don't know if it's because I'm tired from racing over the weekend or what, but I couldn't notice a big difference between map 1 and 2 today. The track was smooth, so maybe once we get some more test riders, get some more opinions on the bikes, get a little bit rougher track conditions, then maybe we'll be able to tell a difference between map 1 and 2. I don't know if it's because the airbox is more closed off or what, but map 1 and map 2, not a huge difference today. This bike also has traction control, it has launch control, and it has that quick shift button that is very, very interesting. I hate shifting off the lip of a jump and hearing the engine cut out, but it just cuts for a brief second. It's not an issue. At first I thought I had a bad bike. At first I thought they gave me the wrong ECU or there was something going on electronically that wasn't good. I came to realize that this is just the same technology they use on street bikes. It cuts the ignition, makes a quick little bog while you're shifting, but that quick little bog is what allows it to shift quicker and get into that next gear and pull it down the straightaway. So kind of now once I'm used to it, like quick shift down start straightaways up the hills, overall day to day, I don't think it's something that I'm gonna be using very often. And I don't think a lot of people are gonna use it very often because KTM, Husqvarna, and even Gas, they have that Pinkel transmission that is ultra strong. It's ultra smooth and just easy to shift no matter what. So quick shift doesn't seem like as much of a benefit on these motorcycles. Also the vibration and the engine braking, going back and forth between the FC250 and the FC450 today. FC250 is so fun to ride. There's barely any vibration at your hands, and there's also very little engine braking, which makes it just super easy to roll your speed through the corners. FC450 doesn't have a lot of engine braking either, but definitely more than the 250 and definitely more vibration as well. Next up, talking a little bit about the weight. I don't have the exact specs on how much this Husky FC250 weighs because we just got it today, but we do have some specs on the KTM factory edition models. That bike was 8 pounds heavier. And we attribute 4 pounds to the factory edition parts. So this bike comes with a skid plate, comes with a front brake rotor guard, it comes with a whole shot device, it comes with new gripper seat cover, and also some little more stiffer wheels and more plastics on the new Rockstar Edition. There are some extra upgrades and some extra weight differences there that you can add up all those different parts. So when you take those off, we attribute about 4 pounds lower, but then that extra 4 pounds, it did gain that on the KTM. So it's gonna be interesting to put this 250 on the scales and see where it weighs in. Other factory edition upgrades, it has the DID rims and it has anodized black hubs. Also has the factory edition or the factory power parts triple clamps that have an adjustable offset. You can go from the stock 22mm offset to a 20mm offset as well. So both of those give you a little more tuning options with the FC250 Rockstar Edition. Two things I will point out is that the chain slack needed and the amount of chain torque needed when you're tightening your chain on the FC250 is different than you might think. So I believe that KTM first recommended 55mm as a gap between the chain slider and the chain originally, but now we've talked to them, they say that the chain actually needs to be a little bit looser, flex a little bit more, and just allow the rear end to be a little more free moving. So they recommend between 65 and 70mm if you're measuring behind the chain slider to the chain. Also, gotta give you guys a heads up, we have already worn out our chain guide on the KTM factory edition model, so that is something that's gonna wear out quickly on your FC250 Rockstar Edition, and that's something that you definitely need to keep an eye on. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, 450s are more about handling, 250s are more about engine character. Why? Another reason for that is because 250s naturally handle a lot better than 450s in general because they're slower engines. You don't hit as hard coming out of corners. You're not going as fast when you're hitting the bumps. And that gives your mind more time to process what you're doing down the straightaways, more time to go around bumps, and to really prepare and brace yourself for whatever's coming next on the track. Naturally, everybody's a better rider on a 250 for the most part. They handle better because they're also lighter. There's less rotating mass going on in the engine, so that allows you to stay leaned over in corners easier, navigate around bumps quicker on the track, and then also just less torque coming out of corners as well. All these things make 250s handle better than 450s. But with that being said, we are still getting used to this new frame on the FC250 and the KTM factory editions. It is definitely stiffer and a little more rigid. And with that, you have to adjust the suspension to compensate for it. The geometry of the frame, where the handlebars sit, the head stay, where the front and rear wheels are positioned, where the foot pegs are positioned, the geometry is all the same, but how they get there is a little bit different. The frame is completely new, the subframe is completely new, and it has a little more torsional rigidity, front and rear. Also has that new shock tower, takes away and kind of absorbs some of the energy better than the old shock tower did on the current generation Husqvarnas. The current generation, the shock initiated all the pressure through the top of the shock, and then that top of the shock connected to the neck of the frame, or the backbone of the frame, that was connected directly to the head, where you could feel all the bumps from the rear wheel in your hands on the handlebars. Now there's a completely new kind of separate shock tower that's meant to absorb a lot of that energy. KTM and Husky did that to get better at skimming whoops in Supercross, get better at coming into corners and coming out of corners in motocross, kind of absorb bumps better, overall make it a little bit easier. So it's been a little bit of a challenge for us to get used to the new platform for KTM and Husqvarna, but like I mentioned, the 250, lighter, easier to ride, and definitely more comfortable than the 450 naturally. A couple other things to touch on with the suspension. KTM and WP and Husqvarna now, and Gas as well, they all have the adjustable by hand rebound and high speed and low speed adjusters. So the forks had adjustable compression adjuster at the top, adjustable rebound adjuster at the bottom. That's been new since 2021, the rebound adjuster was. Now, the new shock is completely new on the factory edition KTM and Rockstar Edition Huskies. Now you can adjust the high speed and the low speed compression on the shock with your hand at the top of the shock, and you can adjust the rebound at the bottom with your hand as well. But I'll be honest with you guys, the rebound is super hard to get to. You pretty much need a flathead screwdriver to adjust that one. And something I should tell you guys is that the shock body is a little bit too big for how narrow the motorcycle is underneath the seat. So with that shock body and with those clickers that are adjustable by hand, Husqvarna was worried that riders would be rubbing their knees on them and changing their suspension settings while they were on the track, so they put an extra plastic guard over that. It does increase the contact patch on the side of the bike, but it also looks kind of weird as well. That is there, the extra plastics that you see behind me, just to protect so you don't change your suspension settings on the fly. Also, the Airbox cover is definitely easier to get to now, which is kind of nice. It was always able to be taken off without any tools. You could always pry it off with your hands, but it was kind of difficult. And we would sometimes say that it wasn't a no tools Airbox because you needed to stick a T-handle anyways in there to get it off easily. Now it's a little bit easier to get on and off, which is kind of nice once you figure out where the notches are for it to stick back into the motorcycle. Air filter is a new shape, so it does come with twin air filters as it did in the past, but the shape is a little bit different now. Still the same technology, still the same way that it pries it into the intake. It's kind of a bummer that it's a new shape because we have so many KTM air filters already. Well, fortunately for Twin Air, our friends over there and sponsors of Motocross Action, they're going to be selling a lot more air filters, but for everybody who has boatload of air filters already, it's kind of a bummer. A couple other things off the top. I really like the Guts seat cover that comes on this bike. I'm a huge seat guy. That's one of the first modifications I do to any stock bike that I'm going to take out and race on the weekend, because I want to be able to grip onto the bike. I don't want to be sliding all around and getting arm pumped because I can't hold on to the motorcycle. So that is a really nice touch. Also comes with the ODI lock-on grips, which I personally love because you can take them on and off so easily. Pro taper handlebars, I'm a huge fan of those as well. I really like the Brembo brakes. Obviously, we talk about it on all the KTM, Husky, Gas bikes. Also appreciate the Brembo hydraulic clutch. Now, some other brands are coming into the hydraulic clutch game, but they aren't as consistent and they aren't as precise as the Brembo clutch. You can know when it's going to engage a lot better on the Brembo, KTM, Husky, or Gas than you will on Kawasaki or on the new Honda clutches. Another thing we're noticing after day one of riding on the FC250 Rockstar Edition is that our clutch cover, the kind of magnesium color that it has on there, it's already starting to wear off. That's something that definitely didn't happen on our stock bikes before, so I don't know if they're using a different paint or something now. It looks the same, but it's wearing off right away, so that's kind of a bummer. This bike retails for $10,699, and it's available now. Check it out at your local dealer. I know it's going to be difficult to get your hands on one because everybody is pre-ordering and doing their best to get the new models. This is a preview of what's to come on the 2023, and Motocross Action, we're going to keep testing these bikes. We got a lot to learn still on these models. We feel so comfortable on the FC250 2022 current generation bike. That bike won our 250 shootout the last 2 years in a row. So that bike is a great motorcycle. We really like the lowered platform of the suspension, and it sounds like that platform is going to be on the 2023s, so we're thankful for that. Thank you guys for tuning into this video. This Week in MXA videos come out every single week, and we are testing this bike and a lot of other bikes in the upcoming weeks, so check out our This Week in MXA video series on YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel if you like what we got going on. We got a lot more videos coming as we got tons of bikes on the to-do list as we're pumping out videos left and right, and pumping out magazine articles as well. So subscribe to Motocross Action magazine, get it shipped to your front door every month, and check out Motocross Action mag every day as we are updating it with all kinds of news and reviews, news from Supercross, news on what's going on in the motocross industry, also reviews on the latest products and bikes.